Welcome back to WWTA News. Thank you for returning for another episode. Again, we'll try to make this as quick and painless as we can. We just want to get into the news articles and, try to get an understanding of what's going on. And here's a pretty good one that I thought I'd just try to wrap my mind around, and I'll share it with you all. So let's get into it. Global central banks announce joint action to keep dollars flowing. What is this? The world's leading central banks jointly announced new action to try to keep U.S. dollars flowing easily through the global banking system, returning to a strategy used extensively in past crises. Driving the news, the Federal Reserve, along with the European Central Bank, Bank of England, Bank of Canada, Bank of Japan, and Swiss National Bank, with their Sunday evening U.S. time, aim to make dollar swap lines more readily available. Between the lines, in times of financial stress, global banks often become more reluctant to lend dollars to each other, creating additional tightening of global credit. Swap lines used extensively in the 2008 global financial crisis and again in the early days of the pandemic in 2020 allow overseas central banks to access dollars direct from the Fed and in turn make dollar loans to their domestic banks. In places, the Fed in a role in effect as, it places the Fed in a role in effect as a global lender of last resort. So a few things happening here, right? This is crazy. So clearly we're talking about keeping U.S. dollars flowing. So that's telling me they don't want the U.S. dollars to lose its dominance, right? So all these people are working together for that, right? So that, the dollars can continue to move. I find that like, with what's going on with Russia, what's going on with China, it's like, are they seriously trying to stay with the dollar, right? Even though they have all these other things in play, right? In times of financial stress, right? Global banks often become more reluctant to lend dollars to each other. So what, banks are lending each other money, which we're seeing by them buying each other out, right? Well, that's a buyout, right? So we know that, all right, so your mortgage, 9 times out of 10 gets bundled with a bunch of other mortgages and gets sold off to a bank somewhere in who knows where. It could be in a whole nother country, right? Happens all the time. Your car loan could be the same way. Who knows? All these things get bundled up and sold off, right? And this is how banks, can I guess manipulate their systems and keep money flowing, because money's always got to be moving to make more money. So, I get that. But here, as we see that these banks are failing from, I guess you'd just say bad business practices or trickery, I don't know. It's just like they're lending money to each other, right? So they can keep U.S. dollars flowing, so they can make each other liquid, right? Well, that's what the Fed was doing, right? So it says here, swap lines used extensively in the 2008 global financial crisis and again in the early days of the pandemic in 2020 allow overseas central banks to access dollars directly from the Fed. So listen, hey, those central banks are then like, okay, well, we need to borrow money, so let's borrow money from the Fed. So now they're shipping money, right, back and forth. So that makes dollar loans, so they can make dollar loans to their domestic banks. So then, okay, so what are we looking at here? All right, so let's just say a country says, all right, well, we need to borrow some money from the Fed, dollars, right? So, all right, boom. And we're going to take this money and we're going to lend it or draw up bonds and contracts with our banks and institutions, right? So then they're brought into the same thing that we're looking at what's happening in the U.S., right? That's what that looks like to me. Am I confused? It places the Fed in a role in effect as a global lender of last resort. Wait a minute. The Fed prints the money, right? Now, this is crazy, right? This is crazy that they just print money and put it out there, and they're loaning it out to central banks so that they can do the same things to their banks and so on and so forth. So everybody's kind of putting themselves in the same situation. Right? So what backs the United States dollar? Bonds. But what are bonds? Contracts. But what are these contracts? Debt contracts. IOUs. Oh, IOUs, right? So as long as I owe you you'll never go broke. Yeah, because I owe you. You'll never go broke, right? Well, you still owe me. And if you can't pay me, I'll just close down your stuff, take over it, get everything I want out of it, and probably just put it up for sale. That's business. So looking at this is like, what are they really saying? What are they really? Hey, look, hey man, don't you all out there get scared. We got you. All right, we're going to print up some money. We're going to make you liquid. You go over there, you do this with your banks. You let them know this, that, and the other. You get them in these contracts. They got money. They can continue to go out and do their business practice of lending and everything else. Everything's going to be fine. That's what it looks like to me. Look, that's what it looks like. If y'all see anything different, or y'all can help me better understand, or help us all better understand, because we're all learning here, feel free to get in the comment section, drop your thoughts. But anyways, I just wanted to share this because it's pretty interesting when you think about it. It's not just in the United States where they're pulling this craziness. They're pulling this craziness in other nations. And Georgiana, with the International Monetary Fund, right? The IMF, Georgiana. She had told these banks, like, y'all better get y'all business in order, because there's some things going down and happening, and the U.S. is not really in a great position, so you better start getting your U.S. debts in order. And I don't know if they listened. You know, there was an article where in Africa, the continent of Africa, countries on that continent were finding new ways to take loans, and I believe they were just mainly talking about cryptocurrency at that point. But different things are happening. You know, different countries have to look at different lenders in different countries to get loans and everything else. So it is what it is. All this stuff has kind of been brought up before. It's just interesting to see here that, yes, the United States is not playing, and you can see who's aligned with them to keep those dollars flowing. So just something to think about. I'll catch you all in the next episode.